What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And this one I want to break down what's going on with NIO stock, what's going on with the overall market. I'm also going to talk about some very important levels to be watching for and what's happening with the news affecting NIO. But before I begin down all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. We deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and the offer ends very, very soon. With that being said, guys, now let's break down what's going on with NIO. Unfortunately, NIO had another red day as we have this downtrend that is continuing to perpetuate. I can even draw out this downtrend right here. I'm also going to talk about Tesla and a few more tickers a little bit later, by the way. But NIO has just been continuing to make these new lows, continuing to fall. And it's very, very sad to see this happening, right? It's very, very sad. Going into next week, we have Tesla's earnings. I think this could also affect NIO because we're going to find out more developments for Tesla. Uh, Both Tesla and NIO have been underperforming. Tesla has attempted to bounce a bit, but it's still very weak looking. And this is actually the entire EV sector. So the EV sector in general, alongside other consumer discretionaries, are taking big hits. And this is still hurting NIO, unfortunately. There's a lot of bad news coming out for NIO, and there's not really a whole lot that NIO could do because of that, besides maintain its deliveries and just try to continue to grow. But I still believe the long term for this company is bright. I believe the long term is going to show lots of signs of improvement, and there's a lot of work to be done. But I still, excuse me, I still believe NIO will make its way through. For the short term, however, NIO is still looking very weak. It's still downtrending technically, so I will break down more details about that later on. NIO announced when it comes to its German developments on the latest episode of Afonso, basically, that it visited the biggest NIO house in the world, which is once again under the factory at NIO Park. This is very important because they visited different places in Germany as well, and that's something very cool for NIO. But on top of this, NIO also dropped 18% in total this week for an 18-week low, unfortunately, and it's not an 18, a 52-week low for the entire year. In fact, it's actually at the lowest we've seen it since 2020, so it's even worse than that. And it's very sad. I mean, we lost $7. That was critical support I was holding for a while, and the share price is continuing to drop. But despite this, I do believe there is opportunity to buy shares for much cheaper prices. But the thing about buying them is I don't think NIO is done dropping yet. So there's still more potential for it to drop for there to be bigger discounts. But the reason why it's dropping like this has to do with the first factor is the fact that we got a lot of bad news from their Chinese registrations dropping and many others. Secondly, the entire EV sector is showing some weakness right now amidst slowing demand in China, in Europe, in other parts of the world, and the immense amount of price cuts we're seeing amongst different companies, including NIO, which was offering discounts for many of its models very, very recently. So there's a lot of bad news coming out. It's hurting NIO big time. There's not really much we could do about this for the short term. The short term is going to have pain, guys. It's very unfortunate, but the long term, I still believe is going to be bright. This is going to require a lot of strong deliveries and a lot of growth and them to have relatively good earnings. We're going to be watching their margins carefully and see how it goes from there. There's also some news that the Chinese startup New Ryzen begins exporting battery swap enabled electric trucks to the Middle East. And this was actually founded by a former NIO senior vice president. So this is some big news that came out, and this is their portfolio company that ended up leading to these big developments. So this is something that's worth noting. Once again, NIO has its hands in many different companies out there alongside its employees and those who are part of its board. So that's good for NIO and good for them. Besides that, NIO is just making a lot of headlines as it's just dropping, and it's at the lowest we've seen it since 2020. So it's very sad to see. But once again, guys, I'm not losing faith in the company. I'll be watching some critical levels. Bank of America gave NIO a neutral rating. The price price ratio is dropping like crazy because NIO is very weak. And the volume is at about 82 million. So the volume is not that bad. It's actually dropping on high volume. Now we have the strong downtrend, so we'll have to see how it goes. So with that being said, as NIO is downtrending, for this thing to bounce, you want to see this thing try to get back above 6.25, try to fill this gap up to like 6.3, and also break above 6.5, which is where we have this imbalance. If we get back above 6.5, there's going to be some potential for it to get back up to 7 and try to make its way up to this critical support. Uh, but if we continue thinking since we are on this downtrend, Our next target is basically 5.8. If we lose this 5.86 area, 5.66 is next alongside 5.5. So we're going to be watching that very carefully. We'll see how it ends up going. So make sure you're prepared for that. Make sure you do what's completely necessary. Besides that, for NIO, I just want to mention a couple of other important factors. When we look at SPY on the daily time frame, SPY is looking very strong. We're about to get a bullish cross in the PPO, which suggests that this could go a little bit higher towards 485. But once again, as this is pushing up, there's a bearish divergence developing, so be very careful with when it tops. But for now, SPY looks bullish. We could see another push to the upside coming. Tesla closed above 212, which gives it potential to try to push towards 216. But nothing is guaranteed since Tesla has a very strong downtrend, and it may actually continue to remain at these levels approaching its earnings. Now, Tesla might actually try to hold up a little bit better because earnings is approaching next week. It's going to be in the middle of the week, so we'll be watching that very carefully. Tesla's earnings is going to be key. We might see Tesla attempt to bounce to 216. Then earnings will determine if this thing runs or not. As far as Apple goes, Apple's pushing up. We haven't completely filled this gap yet up to like the very low 192s, which suggests that Apple could push a little higher and get very close to the low 192s, if not 194 next. There's a very good chance Apple's going to push up higher with the double bottom like formation, which could help the market push. The QQQ is looking bullish. We actually reached 421. Our next target is 422, and if we break that, 425 is next. Overall, I'd say that this is looking quite bullish, so there is potential for this to push higher. As far as Nvidia goes, we hit 595. If we break this, our next target is going to be close to 600. Overall, looks very strong and very bullish. So the most stocks that are looking bullish, but stocks like NIO and Tesla were underperforming. On the daily chart, NIO looks kind of bearish. Same thing on the weekly. So it's very unfortunate, guys. There's not really a whole lot that NIO or I can do about this. But we have to be prepared for this, and we have to be ready just in case. So with NIO sinking, we're about to get a bearish cross in the weekly PPO, which suggests that we could be testing 5.66 later. But that is a very important level for NIO. If we bounce off of that, we could see this thing try to hold. If not, it's going to continue to sink. If anything, it looks bearish. So there's a very good chance 5.66 is going to be tested. So we'll see if that holds or not. If we lose that level, there's going to be more downside coming nonetheless. So that being said, guys, I went over the majority of the stocks out there. NIO, fundamentally, it has a very bright future, but there's going to be pain coming, unfortunately. And we're going to be watching to see if NIO ends up failing at this level. It is barely holding around $6. It actually broke below it temporarily before getting bought back up. So it's not looking that great. It's continuing to sell off. And the best thing we can do is just try to remain as calm, cool, and collected as possible. All right. So have a great day, guys. I just want to thank every single one of you so much for listening. Have an absolutely spectacular rest of the day. Remain calm, cool, and collected. And enjoy the weekend, guys. It's going to be a nice weekend to just take some time off. And I will see you guys tomorrow again for the next one. Thank you for listening, and peace out.